Hey everyone, and welcome into another episode of the Tim and Jim Show. And if you guys want to find out how to get this fancy lighting, message me because it's pretty fancy. But I'm excited to be here. I'm Tim Sohn here hanging out. I'm at Dunkin' Donuts. I was just at Starbucks. Don't tell anyone. I've got my Starbucks here. I'm hanging out at Dunkin'. And I mean, because you got to have your coffee to start out your day or have the middle of your day or whatever. But I digress. Jim Fuse, are you having your coffee?
I'm having my coffee that I made in my own coffee maker in my StreamYard mug. And I've got one of those.
Shout out to StreamYard.
My wife.
Hey Garrison, what are you drinking?
I am drinking water.
Shout out to water.
I have to stay hydrated.
Yeah, you got to have your hydration.
You do.
For sure.
So yeah, great to be here. It's Wednesday. I know that the show time's a little different, but we appreciate everybody still joining us.
Got to keep people on their toes, right, Jim?
Yeah, that's right. Well, every once in a while, we used to do the show at 12, but then it seemed like everybody did a show at 12. And the reality is with Facebook, especially as Eddie and I were talking before the show with this new events thing, I don't know if anybody knows your show's on anyway. So that's why we're on all the other tubes. We're on LinkedIn, we're on YouTube, so it would appreciate you folks following us over there, and on Twitter for those of us that me and Eddie I know at least that like Twitter. And so really excited though. This is Eddie's second time on the show, but we had a great time at People of Video with our friend Dan Courier hosted, and I got an autographed copy of Eddie's newest book.
Ooh.
That actually devalued it. Now it's only worth like $7.99.
But we're going to talk about lead generation made simple and how your business can get started, because this is, I think, definitely a struggle for people. Eddie's been doing this stuff for a while, and so Eddie, great to have you here. You're in Orlando. You're getting ready to travel to Jacksonville for a conference.
Yes.
So. Tell us a little bit more about Eddie Garrison for those people that might be living under a rock and don't know about you.
Wow. This is a 4-hour show, right? So we have to go. We have to get in there. No. So my name is Eddie Garrison, and I am the CEO and founder of Clover Media here in Orlando. And what we do is we help other brands grow their digital presence with social media by avoid doing it themselves, so they're free to run their business. The biggest thing with social media is usually businesses either A, don't know how to do it, or B, don't have the time to do it. So I saw a void there that needed to be filled, and that's the reason I get to live in Orlando and go to Disney all the time. I work with brands that are, small to medium size. It could be a local mom and pop pizza shop, and we have worked with international franchises. We've worked with Walt Disney World. We've worked with Universal. We've worked with SeaWorld. We've worked with Hyatt. We've worked with the NFL. We've worked with the U.S. government. There is in anywhere in between. The biggest thing that I love working with so many different types of brands is it's never boring. And if you've ever met me or you've ever hung out with me, Jim Fuse, you know that I don't like to do anything boring. So it's go all the time. And one of the biggest things that I just love helping other brands get to the level that they want to be at. And that's one of the biggest things that we do at Clover Media, and that's what we strive to do every day.
And here's a little fun fact that I learned from Eddie while we were hanging out in Albany, New York, which is, I think it's upstate New York, but
booming metropolis.
Eddie was a hockey player for a while.
I was, yeah. I played professional hockey for 6 years.
Yes. So Tim, there's my sports for today. I always bring it.
That's it, Jim. That barely took any time.
I mean, if you want me to bring up
some
the
more,
Braves, I was at the game yesterday. I wasn't happy with the result. Going today at 4:30, so hopefully things will be different. But
there's always hope, though, right, Jim?
There's always hope. That's right.
There's always hope,
unless you're the Mets.
Yeah. Okay. 101 wins for nothing.
But that's all right. The Mets maybe next year, right? That's what.
And let us know in the comments your favorite sports team. We want to know.
Yes. Yeah. So we're going to talk about lead generation made simple. So Tim, let's dive into it, and why don't you ask Eddie question number one?
Oh,
Yes. So Eddie, what is lead generation anyway? What does that mean?
so lead generation, I think a lot of people get really, really afraid of that term lead generation because they think, oh, it's spam, or it's we're just blasting them with trying to get them to buy all the time. So it's like we have to sell all the time. And that's not correct. So what lead generation is, in its most simple terms, is you are providing somebody, your hopefully potential consumer or customer, with value up front for perhaps free in exchange for information. That's really what lead generation is. It's an exchange of information. And the simplest thing is obviously email addresses. That is the most simplest form of lead generation. But that is, like I said, in its most simple terms, lead generation is just an exchange of information.
So Eddie, are there different types of lead generation? Because I think, you talked about email, but I mean, are there other ways? Because I think some people like, well, I know I should start an email list, but I haven't done it yet. And, but leads are the lifeblood of some businesses. And if they
Yeah,
don't
very
get
much so.
leads, they're in trouble.
Very much so. And there are a plethora of types of lead generation. Obviously, email being the most well known and probably the quote unquote easiest to get, because we've all downloaded, like we've all seen the ad, or we've all seen the CTA of like, if you want my checklist to be a successful social media manager, grab my 10-point checklist. You have to put in your name and your email address. And that's probably what everybody is comfortable with. And that's probably what everybody is used to. There's also text and SMS that you can do. There's also literally book a call or call me now. So a lot of these obviously are calls to action, but these are also points of lead generation, because once you have that information, and again, that's what lead generation is, like I just spoke to it, it's just an exchange of information. It's I'm providing you with a PDF, a free video, whatever that I'm promising you in the lead generation content. You are exchanging my information for your information. So be that an email, be that a text, be that a phone call, be that a video chat, jump on a Zoom with me for a free 15-minute consultation. These are all types of lead generation that you can offer your consumers.
Yeah, those are some good ideas. Tim, have you been doing any lead generation, or thought of maybe ways that you could do that? Because I know you've run a couple of courses in the past where you were doing, like, teaching people how to live stream. And so in a way that you were trying to generate leads, what did you find was maybe some of the struggles where maybe if you'd had this book,
that's right,
you might have.
Yes. So the way that I got most people into my courses is they found out about them through the live stream shows, like here on the Tim and Jim show, or I was producing Brian Schulman's Shout Out Saturday show at the time. So that's really the number one way that they found out. But Eddie, I was wondering, are there certain ways or different types of lead generation that tend to work better or worse for different types of businesses, or not necessarily?
No, well, it depends really on the industry and the niche that you're in.
Sure.
I'll give you a quick example, one that we're running with right now in Orlando. My business, Clover Media, so shameless self-plug there. We work with an Italian restaurant here just north of the city. And for them to help build their email and SMS text list, we are doing a lead generation to where if it's a specific ad that we're running for 15% off your meal or a free appetizer, and you get to choose. But the fun part is you don't actually get to choose. It's a video that it flips back and forth really, really fast, and you have to take a screen grab of it, and whatever your screen grab is, that's what you get. So if you either get the 15% off or you get the free appetizer. So that's how we're running that lead gen right now.
Wow.
Sounds fun.
It is.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be fun. Social media is supposed to be fun.
Yes, definitely. So that's interesting. So now, Eddie, for your business, have you found like a specific type? Like, I think we've talked about before, like maybe you do a PDF giveaway of some sort with information. Do you tend to find that people really get into that? And I know we also at the conference talked about where you were using Dennis Yu's dollar a day
$1 a day. Yeah.
strategy. And is ads a part of lead generation, or is that or not? I don't know.
Yes, it is very much so. And what people don't, I think, correlate to paid advertisement, and I detest the phrase pay to play. There is no such thing as that. And everybody uses it on Facebook. They're like, "Oh, organic reach sucks." Well, not for our customers, not for our clients. It doesn't. They do very well with organic reach. You don't need to run ads until you understand what your target audience wants to see. So, and nobody's going to understand that in the first week or the first month. I look at things in quarters, like 90-day increments. So if we see a particular piece of organic content doing quite well over a 90-day stretch, then we look at it and go, okay, they like this type of content. What sort of lead generation can we create around that content? So to your point, I do like to use Dennis Yu's dollar a day strategy. And if no one is familiar with that, I'll kind of go into that just a little bit. So basically what he is saying is you take 3 ads and you put $1 behind it. So you start on Monday and you run your lead gen ad for 7 days for $1. Then on Tuesday, you run another lead gen for for $1 for 7 days. And then on Wednesday, you run another lead generation ad for 7 days for $1. At the end of that third one running for 7 days, you look at the performance of each one of those ads. Whichever one performed the best, you pile more money on top of that. So I did this for a case study for my YouTube channel and just for my business as well. And I got 60 leads for $20.
Wow.
Now, obviously, all of those leads are not going to turn into clients, but 4 of them did. And I know everybody's like, man, only 4 out of 60, but I only spent $20.
Right. That's what I was going to say. You got four leads that converted, right?
Correct.
And I'm sure you made more than $20 from those.
$2,000.
Yes.
That's what it was.
Wow. Yeah.
So for $20, I made $2,000.
Well, and the fact that you only had to start with $1, right? I mean,
Right.
it's a brilliant strategy. And I think sometimes people forget that, right? You can literally do ads on Facebook for that amount. And some of the other platforms are a little bit more expensive when it comes to running ads. So that's really interesting. Now, I guess when you're doing the like say the leads, are you taking them to a landing page? Are you taking them to your website? Because I guess there's pros and cons. Like I tend to find, I think the landing page makes more sense because if you take people to your website, they can get lost in what you were trying to get them to do, and they may even end up going somewhere else. So any thoughts on that?
Yeah. Excuse me. I believe that, and this is just from my own experience and what we have seen success with, I believe that the landing page is the best way to go about it because one, it does a factor of a couple of different things. One, it gets them to your website, but I do believe your landing page needs to be navigation blank. So when you just go to like clovermedia.com, you will not see any of my landing pages. You can't get to a landing page on my website. You have to actually click on the lead gen piece of content to get to that website. And my thought process on that is I want them to have a linear journey when they see that lead gen. So they click on it and they go, oh, wow, I want to watch this free video series. So they click on that, learn more or watch now or whatever the CTA is. And instead of, to your point, just going to clovermediaconsulting.com where they would get lost, it takes them specifically to where they need to be. Because as we all know, everybody's attention span is that of about a goldfish. So you got about 8 seconds for them to either determine if they're going to stay on your website or not. However, if you're bringing them to a very specific landing page, which their thought process top of mind is, oh, I want to watch this video series, or I want to download this PDF, it keeps their attention there. Now it brings them to your website. So even once they give you their information, they're still on your website. And that's the overlying principle of what lead generation is. You want them to come to your website to understand, and this is basically marketing 101. You need to be able to tell them as quickly as possible who you are, what you do, how you can solve their problem, and how they can get their problem solved with you. That's the 4 basic principles of marketing. That's what your website needs to say.
Love that. Love that. Now, Eddie, we had, you and I talked, I mean, we actually did a panel at People of Video about the Amazon Influencer Program. Yeah. And one of the things you talked about, and this is kind of getting into the lead generation, is you're actually using, I guess, your shoppable videos as a potential way to generate leads for working with companies.
Oh, heck yeah. I mean, I at least get, I would say probably 5 to 7 brands that reach out to me every month that want to do a collaboration with me. Now, do all of those pan out? No. I would say I probably work with 3 brands a month, every month. And it's basically from these shoppable videos that I'm putting up on Amazon.
And now, are you just keeping them on Amazon, or you're like sharing them through Twitter? I know Twitter. Well, I should say, I know you love Facebook, right? We're going to let that know. But you also use Twitter a lot, and actually, you have seen, and kind of shout out to our friend Judy Fox. You and I both have seen where LinkedIn, there's a lot more to it than maybe people used to give it credit for, and you're actually using the newsletter, I think, as your main way there. And are you seeing that generate leads?
Yes, I am. I love the newsletter on LinkedIn because I was not a fan of LinkedIn for about the past 5 years. Back in the mid 2000s, it was a great platform and I loved it. But now it became, to me, it just became like this wasteland of self-promotion and spam bots and all this good stuff. But once they came up with the newsletter, I really like the way that they position the newsletter. And for those of you that aren't using a LinkedIn a LinkedIn newsletter, you need to jump on that trend. One thing that I really love about the newsletter is it's a piece of content. So when you publish a newsletter, you can actually, it posts as a post on your LinkedIn newsfeed, but the people that are subscribed to your newsletter, it will send them a direct message and an email to say, Jim Fuse just published a newsletter, go check it out. So it's giving these alerts to it. So a way you can use that with your video content, and even more specifically about your Amazon shoppable videos, is you could start posting a newsletter once a week, twice a month, whatever, and go, here's the top 5 budget-friendly webcams for doing live streams. And then 2 weeks later, here's the top 5 budget-friendly microphones. And you can embed your Amazon shoppable videos, or just post a thumbnail and a link to your Amazon account or your Amazon storefront, and it's going to drive business for you. It's going to drive leads to go purchase that, and you're going to make those commissions. So it's a win-win for everybody involved.
Yeah, I think that's, because that was definitely something that I didn't realize, right? Talking with Judy, is that you can actually create a company page newsletter when you get to about 200 followers. So I think that's a nice thing to do too, because maybe you don't want all your quote unquote business content necessarily as part of your personal feed. Like, you've got your newsletter that I think is more tied to Eddie Garrison, but now you could actually create a Clover Media one, which would maybe be more specific. And I just think it's a great thing. And here's the thing, folks, with lead generation, LinkedIn is, I mean, I don't know if doubling down is the right word, but they are definitely making a bigger emphasis on company pages. And so I think, don't fall asleep there, because I think one of the things people don't always do, one of the things I always recommend is, make sure that, and Eddie, it's like Eddie was going away for a station break, but is the fact that if you have your own business, you need to create a company page on LinkedIn, because if you don't, when I hit your experience, it takes me to the search results of LinkedIn, and it's free, folks. It's free. So I don't know what you're waiting on.
And one thing that I want to even stress more about LinkedIn is, when on your personal profile or even on your LinkedIn business page, one thing that people don't do correctly, for me, is if they're trying to use it to do lead generation, because that's what we're talking about, instead of putting your company website or your personal website in there, don't do that. Make sure it's a lead gen CTA in there. Right. So like right now on my personal profile, instead of having a website, it actually says, get my social media toolkit. and it takes them to a landing page where they can download my social media toolkit.
Yeah, they just added that too, right? That's
Yes.
where you have this link that's
Yeah.
specifically a CTA right
Yes.
off the front. That's
Yep.
awesome.
So take advantage of that. You can put your website anywhere else, but you use that because it's a clickable, it's an active URL. So don't just waste it on your website, because if you do the lead gen, it's already taken them to a website. So most people won't click on www.google.com or whatever, but if they see something like, oh, download my free video series, they're going to click on that.
Right. Right.
And it takes them to your website anyway. So you're already getting them to your website, but you're offering value, which value, and again, we're going to lead generation, is that exchange of information, and that's what you want.
Yeah. Well, we're going to take a quick pause and hear from our friends at StreamYard, and you can catch some of the features, and we'll come back. We'll be doing the Tim dance. So we'll see you guys.
Get ready. All right. Hello, everyone. We're back here doing the Tim dance on the Tim and Jim show. And welcome back. Whether you're live or on the replay, we appreciate you showing up. We appreciate Jim Fuse down here. We appreciate Eddie Garrison over there. Yes, that way, or whichever. Yes. And thank you all. So Jim Fuse, before we go back to Eddie Garrison, I'm curious, what's your perspective on all of this in terms of lead generation, and what have you seen through your business, and as well, you're so involved in Amazon also.
I think part of it is your content sometimes generates leads. Definitely, like Eddie says, stuff that we do on Amazon, we have companies contacting us. Whether we work with them or not is one thing, but I think it's more about thinking of a more intentional process, because it's not even so much that all that I do outside of this is Amazon, right? I do remote live stream production. So what am I creating that allows people, like, I could create something like, 5 things to consider when hiring a remote live stream producer, right? And put those things out there in a PDF, and they can download it, because a lot of companies don't realize what it takes to produce a show, right?
Oh.
They just think, oh, well, you're just pushing buttons. I mean,
So
StreamYard
true.
is doing a lot of things. They've just created not only have they created where now we can take the videos post show and start creating clips out of it, but not too far in the future. I know this from good sources. They're going to have individual what do you call it, video files. So
That's cool.
we can take these 3 files of each of us, and then I could edit them, and I could create vertical video with it, right? Because they're all going to be separate files. And so those are
Very
things
cool.
that you can create great content out of for some of these, short form platforms. I don't know. Eddie and I think, are both in agreement. We're kind of not completely bought into some of that stuff, but it does have its purposes.
It does. And the biggest thing with like short form video content for me is I see people having great success with it, but it's not a business success with it, to where it's like a bunch of, pointing and dancing and, oh, I've got 300,000 followers on TikTok. Well, that's great, but does it generate revenue outside of the ad share? Like, I don't know. I look to social media and just marketing in general as growing revenue for others' businesses and my business as well. The inconsistency of performance of short form video content, I think, has everybody perplexed at this point.
Right. And I think this leads, Tim, if you want to answer our third question for Eddie.
I would love to. So Eddie, how do you build a lead generation strategy?
You buy my book at the link. No. So a lead generation strategy, I look at all lead generation in 3 different categories, and it's awareness, it's consideration, and it's decision. So your lead generation strategy needs to focus on those 3 points. And I look at lead generation as a relationship with your business and a potential consumer. So awareness is the initial meeting. That's when you walk up to a guy or a girl in the nightclub, in the bar, in a restaurant, the church, wherever, and be like, hi, I'm Jim Fuse. I saw you from across the room, and I wanted to perhaps get to know you a little bit better. So that's awareness. You're making sure they know who you are, right? You walk up and you tell them, this is what we do. And then the consideration, that's the curiosity or the interest portion of lead generation. So they already know who you are from the awareness portion of your lead generation. Now they're curious and interested of who you are, because that's when they're considering the next stage, which is the decision or the purchasing decision process of the 3 steps of lead generation. So if you can do awareness, consideration, and decision, that is how you start to build a successful lead generation campaign, funnel, bucket, silo. Insert any marketing jargon you want in there, but those 3 are the top 3 and the most important that you need to do when you're building your lead generation strategy.
I think that's so important. What you bring up there, Eddie, is what people sometimes forget, right? And I think this is where you see sometimes people fail in ad campaigns. It's like, I just got this widget here and I want to sell it. And they automatically go to a conversion strategy. It's like, I don't know you. I don't know if you're solving my problem yet. So how do you expect me to make a purchase? And it does take time. I mean,
It does.
People are at different points in the cycle, but they got to become aware of you first, right? It's
Yes.
that know, like, and trust. And I think that's where I see a lot of, I don't even know if I would so much call it failure, but I'd say it's an impatience, right?
Very much so.
I mean, I'm sure, Eddie, you've turned down people because they're like, hey, I want this and I want it next week. And you're like, no, it's going to take a few months. Oh, well, I don't want to wait a few months. It's like,
Yep.
You can't, you don't even know, right? You were talking about it earlier. We don't know who their audience is. They may not even know, right? Or like, oh, everybody. No, they're not. It's not everybody.
Most people, most brands that we have worked with, how we work at Clover Media is when a lead comes in or we get referred to a brand to work with, we send them a social media questionnaire. And it's a pretty in-depth questionnaire where I think it's got 25 questions on it. And there's some high-level stuff like where are you at? Blah, blah, blah. But when they get down to the audience portion, they think that they know what their audience is. But once we start to work with them and then we look at their analytics, they have no idea who their audience is. And it might be a completely different audience than they thought of. Like we worked with a small chain here in Florida, and they were like an oil change and tire, fixing shop. And they were like, oh, we want to target car guys, when actually their audience was mothers and women, because and I'm not trying to be sexist here, but most women aren't going to change the oil in their driveway of their minivan. They're not. They needed to know where to go, how fast it was going to be, and how much it was, because they're on a schedule, right? They have to pick up the kids. They have to do this. They have to go to work. They do whatever. So it was funny how when they positioned themselves and they filled out our questionnaire, it was like, oh, it's men 21 to 44, when it was actually women 35 to 55 was their target audience.
Right. And that makes a lot of sense, right? Because, even thinking, I mean, trust you, though, I'm going to be one of these people that drives my car in and get my oil changed because I don't want to go through all this stuff and, I can get it done faster, right? That's it. That's the other thing. How do you value your time and your money? Like some people love to mow their yard. I pay a guy because I can be doing other things while he's mowing my yard for me.
Right.
So I think that's where I think sometimes the businesses don't always think about, like, okay, but what problem am I solving for the customer? Customer doesn't have to dispose of the oil. Customer doesn't have to put their car up on a lift and all these other things and then find the stuff. And, so I think that's interesting, right? Because maybe they think that the guys make all the decisions. Now they may tell their spouse or partner where to go to get the stuff changed. And that's where the trust comes in. Because
Exactly.
I'm sure you've heard the stories of oil change places that have ruined people's car because they tighten a screw. And that's another reason why I'm not going to change my own oil, because I might forget that. And then I would not be happy with myself.
And that's the thing. Like when you're doing lead generation, you are showing them their pain point, and you're also showing them how it makes their life easier. To your point, you may not have the tools to do it. We do. We have the convenience, we have the tools, we have the knowledge. Boom, there it is. There's your lead generation strategy. That's what, and I actually literally earlier this week changed my navigation on my website to, instead of saying about us, services, contact us, I did it in a linear fashion on the top of my website. And it actually says, these are the actual navigation links on my website: who we are, what we do, how we do it, get started.
Nice. We'll have to,
and it just leads them on a natural buyer's journey with awareness, consideration, decision. That's what you have to remember in lead generation.
Yeah. So, folks, if you want to connect with Eddie, go to Facebook and Twitter, and just go to Eddie Garrison, and you'll find him there. You could actually go on LinkedIn, subscribe to his newsletter. He's probably sharing a link to his newsletter on Twitter too. If you,
I do
find it.
People sleep on Twitter, man, but I post like nobody's business on Twitter.
Yeah, no, Twitter. I love Twitter. Twitter chats. Winnie's son's got her chat today at 2:00. For those of you that want to learn some stuff from her, and there's an example too, right, of someone that she is, in my mind, one of the tops in the financial planning industry, and she's not afraid of social media. Where you have all these other financial people like, oh, I can't do anything because I'll get in trouble. Well, she's on CNBC, she's on NASDAQ. I mean,
yeah,
she gets out there, and she's on Twitter. She has her own Twitter chat. So I'm sure that's generating her leads by her doing that.
And I don't understand why people have so many problems on these platforms. Like, everyone hates Facebook. Like, oh, I'm in Facebook jail. I did this. I was like, I've never had a problem like that on Facebook.
Yeah. Well, and do you think, Eddie, now too, that they've changed it? Because I think, Tim, I don't know if you've done this yet, but Eddie and I both switched to the professional Facebook for our personal.
Yeah.
And I've actually been fairly pleased with it. I'll say there's some quirks I've noticed, but you get analytics of your post, where if it's just your regular personal profile, you don't. And I think I'm getting more reach on some posts. I mean, what do you think, Eddie? Have you seen that?
Well, here's the thing. Like, I don't know. I can't say definitively if I am or not, because I didn't have the analytics before.
Right.
But when I switched and started to see them, I was actually incredibly surprised on how some posts did against others.
Right. That definitely. So Tim, any other thoughts or questions for Eddie? I mean, this has been great, and folks, I've shared in the chat on all the tubes a link to get Eddie's book on Amazon, how you can get your lead generation, and it's not a big book, so it's easy to read.
Size doesn't matter. That's what my wife tells me.
I like that, because my attention span is probably the size of that book. So I'm definitely going to check it out.
I try to keep my books under 100 pages, and I try to pack it with as much value as possible.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So Eddie, I'm just curious in terms of what's your perspective in terms of live streaming and where that fits in terms of what we're talking about today, in terms of lead generation.
Oh, I love live streaming for lead generation, because it's so genuine and it's so personal that you're automatically building that trust level with live streaming, because this isn't edited, right? I can mess up, my boom mic could fall, and people like real. That's what they do. That's what all the brands that we work with. Anytime that we are showing something like out in the field or just a reel or behind the scenes, that kind of content always performs the best for them. So in terms of live streaming and lead generation, you need to have, and I do this, and I know you guys both do this, and I use something that's called an ROS, which is a run of show. So I have my live streams mapped out, and that's what you need to do. It can be as genuine and real on a live as possible, but you do want some sort of structure. And it's not necessarily about the structure of the show, but it's more notes to where you go, okay, I'm going to do my intro. I'm going to play the bump. I'm going to introduce the guest. And then once we're in the guest, we're going to do the questions, and then we're going to have CTAs. And that's where your lead generation plays into your live streaming, is in these CTAs. Oh, by the way, and you're trying to generate leads for me right now, right? Leads as in sales for my book. If you want to check this out, there's the link in the description. Or, on other shows, like if you want to download my, 10 steps to producing a live stream show, click, do hashtag live stream, and I will make sure to send you a link after the show. That's how you can incorporate lead generation into your live streams.
Yeah, I love that. I think that I'm with you, Eddie. I think sometimes we see these people spend hours and hours creating a video, say for an example for YouTube, where they're doing all this editing, and you can kind of tell. It's like I usually don't do much editing. I don't know if you do either when it comes to doing a video. I mean, unless I just made some horrendous error. If anything, I'll probably just redo the video because I like to just go through, because I don't want people to see like, oh, you can tell where he cut here, cut there. So yeah, I think it's or even being able to take the live stream like this and repurpose it and take those clips where you said something really important, you put it out there. And it's like, if you want to watch the rest of the show, here's the link, and you go back and get them to.
Yeah, I'm not a big editing guy. I edit for what I could what we in the industry call attention breaks. So when I change, I script my videos and I actually read off a teleprompter, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, I didn't know you did that." But that's a different skill set altogether that you have to practice. But I don't do any kind of weird transitions because I just think that looks gimmicky and everything. So I do where if I'm shooting a shot that looks just like this and I'm talking to who's like, hey, today I'm going to be on the Tim and Jim show. We're going to be talking about lead generation. When I have that pause, that's when in the next bit of the video, I'll zoom in 105. I'll zoom in 5% to where it breaks your attention. But it's funny because it's called an attention break, but it actually forces you to pay attention more. They're like, oh, something else just happened. I need to pay attention. And lower thirds are a great way. B-roll is a great way to do that. So you can actually have a very, very effective video with very little editing involved.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. Yeah. So Eddie, this has been great. Tell us, so you've got something coming up here in Jacksonville, Florida. Why don't you tell us?
Yeah, I actually leave a little bit later today. When I get done here, I got to pack and head on up to Jacksonville. So yeah, Fisher Agency, the University of North Florida, do this every year. It's called Social Media Expo Jax, which is Social Media Expo Jacksonville, and it's a one-day event. And they're bringing social media and digital marketing professionals together for local and international businesses to learn more on how they can capitalize and grow their brand on social media. So I will be speaking. I'll have a keynote, and I will also be on a panel coming up on Friday up in Jacksonville. So I look forward to seeing everyone there if you're going. And if not, I will have a video of my talks up on all of my social media profiles wherever you stalk me at. So
awesome. And Tim, you've got something coming up. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Coming up on November 5th, I have my in-person Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer event coming up. I just said coming up twice, but there you go. Keeping it real here on the Tim and Jim Show. So if you're a cancer patient, cancer survivor, cancer supporter, you have any connection on cancer, would love to see you here in Pennsylvania. It's a free event. We'll be sharing our cancer stories, inspiring each other, supporting each other. You could go to perspectivesoncancer.com. It's in partnership with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. So yeah, just go to the website, and would love to see you here in scenic Northeast Pennsylvania.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. That's great.
Yeah, and next week, one of our new friends from People of Video, Eddie, Keely Dunn, will be here, and we'll be talking about Discord.
What's
that?
And
that's a new platform for some of us. But she's going to tell us how you might want to get started on it, because it is definitely something that is changing the way people are building community and interacting. I know that the eCam folks have really been pushing the Discord as a way. And I know my friend Mitch Jackson as well has one where he's talking a lot about Web3. So if anything, just like with Facebook, you got to have an open mind and be willing to learn, because things change and you don't want to get left behind. Doesn't mean you have to go all in.
Yeah.
But I think awareness is definitely important as these things change. So we'll be back at our regular time next week of 11 Eastern. And thanks, Eddie. It's great to see you. Glad we could get you on here today. And
thank you for having me on.
Continued good luck with the book, folks. Check it out. Lead Generation Made Simple. Definitely great read. He gets to the meat of it, right? There's no fluff.
No fluff.
Eddie's a no fluff guy.
I am not.
Yeah. So
go buy the book. I got bills to pay.
Yeah. When you told us how you were going to get to the conference, you're definitely going to have bills.
Oh, jeez. Yeah.
So, all right, folks, everyone have a great one. It was great to see you, and we will see you next week on the Tim and Jim Show.
Thank you.
Bye, y'all.